Good evening and namaskar, everyone. We welcome you today to our ninth episode of In Conversations on Showcase Studio by Showcase Events. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who've been with us all this while in our journey up till the ninth episode, you would have witnessed a lot of very interesting artists and musicians. The whole core of this show is to bring forward the art forms and even the instruments and then the artists who've stayed pure to their art forms, to the instruments, and then taken them to the next level. Similarly, in that line, today we have a very special guest, a very, very dear friend as well, Ustaad Fazal Qureshi, the tabla maestro himself. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say a few more lines about him before I hand over the stage to him. First, welcome, Fazal Bhai, and thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Looking forward.
And just to continue from here, just a little bit more I want to share with the audience today is that I met Fazal Bhai actually at, I think it was at Kila many, many years ago. Maybe it was called Blue Frog at that time for a show that was happening. And I was amazed to see a tabla maestro there and, how tabla was being fused with other sounds, etc. And that's what motivated me to speak to him about Kasoli Rhythm and Blues Music Festival, if you remember. And with Genesis Foundation, our annual music festival in Kasoli. And it was amazing the innovative set that you came up with Ravi Charian, with Pandit Ravi Charian, with Ravi Iyer. And it was fascinating to see how Indian classical music could be presented on a festival stage.
We had a great time, fantastic festival, and you did a great job. And I'm happy that I was there. Actually, we did. I like to play with musicians that I have a good contact with, and Ravi Chari and Ravi Iyer, they are one of them. So I had a fantastic time.
I have to say, I have to introduce our very dear friend and host, and a gentleman I call the encyclopedia on music, and that's Narendra Kusnur. So I'm
Hello.
sure you both know each other, and anybody in the music industry knows Naren, and Naren knows everybody in the music industry. So it's like a fabulous relationship. So before I get off the stage, I'm going to request a small piece to start this evening with.
Wow. Good evening, Fazal ji.
Good evening,
Good evening,
Narendra ji.
everybody.
See you.
Good
It's been a
evening.
while.
Such a long time. We met only 45 minutes back, and now we are again
Yeah,
such
again
a long
meeting.
time.
Those 45 minutes
So,
a long time. I'm
I
waiting
know.
here. Come on and ask
Yeah.
me questions. This is
Yeah.
actually,
So,
it was an amazing. My father's a little peshkar, and it's called a peshkar. The
yeah.
peshkar, and the tabla terminology a little bit connected with Persian and Farsi, so the
Yeah.
Peshkar present, how it is. So that was
Okay.
what I, intend to do, present my
Okay.
music and present what my father has taught me. So this was
Yeah.
like a Peshkar, with my father's point of view, his the way he used to go about doing
Peaceful.
his,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
Peshkar.
Yeah. Fine. So we'll be talking a lot about Peshkar and other forms of composition and tabla and all. Basically, I mean, this will be, I would, since you're comfortable with that, we'll just start the concert and begin improvising. So
Okay.
we'll just have a free-flowing conversation. And so we can start with, of course, we'll start with the basic, जैसे आलाप से शुरू करते हैं लोग. तो वैसे
Yeah.
starting of the evolution of the tabla to the time, the different gharanas, and specifically the Punjab gharana, which your family and you represent. So if
Yeah.
we can just take us through that quickly, then.
The tabla basically is a very interesting instrument, and there are many theories as to how it came about, and why it came about, and what is the reason behind it. The general theory is that it is attributed to uh, Amir Khusro ji, who's the sort of what you call as the doyen of the Indian music, or not Indian music as such, but the influence that the Persian music had on Indian music rather, and created a thing. So what we call as khayal style of music that came with the Persians
Yeah.
basically. उसके पहले तो we used to have the Drupad Damar,
Yeah.
and the interesting part of Indian music is that it has many of you may have noticed, or many of you may not have noticed, is that every style of music has its own accompaniment basically. For instance, if you have Drupad Dhamar, you have a Pakhavaj accompaniment. There's
Yeah.
no tabla accompaniment for Drupad Dhamar. It's always a Pakhavaj, because
Yeah.
Pakhavaj is an older instrument, and it has the ability to, and also the character to play with Drupad Dhamar,
Yeah.
and so when the music that the first we can call it like a fusion music only, when the Indian music of Drupad Damar combined with the Persian, and the khayal probably the word itself means imagination. And the
Imagination.
khayal, so you use your imagination in order to improvise the ragas and so on and so forth, and that required a different style, or rather different instrument to accompany the khayal style of music. So, but the popularity of khayal became so much that nowadays when you hear anybody singing,
Yeah.
that's a style of music. I mean, it means or Jasraj ji or anybody who sang, it was a khayal style of music.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
the instrumental music had all both of them combined together, which is a very interesting thing, because Yalab Jhod Jala is basically a Pakhavaj, the Drupad style, basically the Alab Jhod Jala, and there's a nom happening in the when they do the little bit of thing. So that is, and so some of the musicians started using Pakhavaj during the Alab, like for instance, Shivji uses it and Hariji
Yeah.
has used it,
Yeah.
and earlier Raviji was using a
Yeah.
Pakhavaj player with him. So that is the basically the the Drupad Damar style, and then the tabla joins in the khayal style,
Yeah.
and where you have the accompaniment. Now the tabla
Okay.
was created. I don't want to go into the theories, because there are many theories.
Yeah.
वो पखावज को तोड़ के बना दिया,
Todke
या
वगैरह. That is the commonly believed or rather said theory.
yeah. But the common belief that I believe in is that it has come from Pakhavaj, because exists there exists an instrument which is in Punjab, which is called the tabla jodi, which is the
Okay.
hama, so which has baya still, the long baya, which is still has the atta being played on, atta laga karke baja, and the
Acha.
tabla. So you have the so I call that as a missing link, as you have in the missing link in evolution. So I think this is that dhama is actually a missing link between the pakhavaj and the tabla. तो उस पर क्या होता है, वो है तबले की तरह, मगर बजता है पखावज के बोल उस पर बजते हैं.
Okay.
So that पंजाब में वो पाया जाता है, and it is played in a पखावज style, open style, and इसको भी ऊपर ओपन करके बजाते हैं जैसे पखावज बजता है. है वो, और उसमें आटा लगता है, और वो बाया जो है वो काफी बड़ा होता है, and that is the dhama we call it. And
Okay.
fortunately I had this opportunity to create something. Zakir bhai told me I think 2 years ago, do something interesting for the Guru Purnima or something. I said okay. So I brought these Dhama players, because there are some of my students who play Dhama who have learnt in Punjab, and they have come here and they're learning from me now. So the two students from the Dhama, and I had my three students of the Tabla, and we put together a combination of show how it can combine with the Dhama playing its own style and the Tabla playing, and then they played Peshkar composition. So I brought in my father's point of view and all that stuff. So that was a unique combination, which Zakir Bhai liked it so much that he used it in various combinations at the NCPA, where he does the Ati Anand. I think he did one of those things where he had the Dhama and the Tabla players, my students playing with him. So I think that itself proves that the tabla has come from Pakhavach. Now, how it has come, there are many stories, and I don't want to that because simply because I don't want to create any controversy and say that this is the one, that is the one, that is. So I would just say that it has come from Pakhavach because of this particular missing link that we think about as the Dhama, and the tabla is created. Now the tabla's character is basically there only to play with the khayal style of music. It doesn't play, but because of the character of tabla, because the way it is, and of course the people who play it, they have brought in so many things into it. Because उसमें अगर आप देखा है तो गणेश पड़न है, बनारस में बजता है, ये है, और उसमें नटखट नाचत चपल चाल, these are all the stuff that you can the dance में इस्तेमाल करते हो, तबले में बोल करके बजा सकते हैं, because it has that character in it, and it has the ability to I would say imitate. I mean, we are not really playing the chapal chal, but we are just giving the impression that it is that, So and these are the things that made tabla so popular, that it's now used in every style of music. Yeah, film music हो या गजल हो, ठुमरी तो बजता ही था, गजल हाँ, तो फिल्म म्यूजिक में साउथ इंडिया में भी आजकल बहुत ज्यादा इस्तेमाल लगा है। अभी साउथ इंडियन ट्रेडिशनल कॉन्सर्ट में आई रिमेम्बर प्लेइंग वन ट्रेडिशनल कॉन्सर्ट. I mean, I played many, but there was one concert that I played with the great U Srinivas and his brother U Rajesh at Bangalore, and it is a very interesting incident that it's a 60-year-old festival which happens in Bangalore. Sometimes
the Ram Navami ka festival.
Ram Navami festival. And I got to play with, and you won't believe it, the announcer was announcing, and he said that the announcer was saying that we have Fazal Qureshi playing, and he looked at me and he said, 50 years ago, I was a child sitting in the audience, and I saw your father play on the same stage. With Ravi Shankar, and now I'm, later on, now I'm announcing the concert, and I have you play on the same stage, and it was such an amazing experience to kind of be on the same stage where my father played 50 years ago, and then I was a new Rajesh. And I told Rajesh, I said, I told Srini, I said, Srini, do you want the tabla to be there for the whole 2.5 hours that we are playing? I mean, I can come and play some sections, and no. He said, no. I want you to be there throughout. It's very important. That you show that the tabla can be played with the South Indian music and all that. So that was his point of view, and I played. So I think that is the character of the instrument, and I say this. I mean, I've said it many a times, and I say it again, that this is all due to the big guys who have played this instrument and have sort of combined it with other. My father was probably the first guys in the 60s to play with the South Indian instrument. There was a big fight between the South Indian music and Indian music, and South Indian instrument and Indian. And my father played with Palgad Raghuji and Palgad Mani Ayarji, who are the great,
South Indians.
Yeah. players and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and he collaborated with them in the 60s, which is amazing, which was never there in those days. The classical music they never collaborated as such. So
Yeah.
I think, and then of course Raviji took this huge trip, in 1968 to America,
Mm.
where we had the South Indian instrumentalists, veena players, tabla players, and Shivji was there in that as a
Yeah.
santoor player, as well as doing tabla, playing tabla.
Mm.
He used to
Okay.
accompany Lakshmi Shankar ji on tabla, and then he used to play his part on the santoor, and my father Abbaji used to accompany
Mm.
him on the tabla. So that
Okay.
used to be that thing that goes back in 1968. So there was so many musicians, and Raviji brought all these musicians together and created this fantastic tour of America in
Okay.
1968. All the
Yeah.
incidents.
What is the speciality of the Punjab Gharana? And if you could demonstrate some specific compositions of that with some other Gharanas, and how did these different schools evolve also?
So
So
let
you
me
have
touch.
Farrukhabad, you have Arjada, you have Lucknow, you have various other.
Absolutely. Let me touch the Gharana aspect first, and then I will play. See, the
Huh.
Gharana, first it was basically the tabla existed in Delhi.
Mm.
Delhi is the main tabla Gharana, as you can
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then from there, during one of those periods of time when things were not happening as such in Delhi, people migrated. The Ustads, the Pandits migrated from from Delhi to the other parts of India. They went to Lucknow, they went to Calcutta, they went to Punjab, they went to Banaras, and of course, Pakhavaj players, other instruments were existing in those places. For instance, Pakhavaj was existing in a prominent way in Banaras and in Punjab, and therefore the ustads went to these places, and they settled there, and they were teaching students there, and it can happen even in modern day also, and
Yeah.
therefore they started a style which incorporated the local percussion style of playing
Okay.
together, you know and therefore you have a very subtle difference in playing. Basically, it's all almost the same, but there's a subtle difference in playing of Delhi, of Lucknow, of Ajrada, of Khurkhabad. These are all the places that existed,
Mm.
and but it's almost the same style. But
Okay.
there is a subtle change in that, and because, so for instance, Lucknow had dance
Mm.
form there, because Lucknow ka Kathak ka gharana
Kathak.
bhi.
Yeah. Mm.
So tabla was playing with the Kathak, so therefore they had to adopt rather certain way of playing certain things in order to play with the Kathak, because Kathak is a very aggressive style of dance, and they needed to be aggressive. Whereas the Delhi style is basically using the fingers, like and
Okay.
therefore they had to. So therefore, when you see the Lucknow style, there is a lot of Kathak sort of bowls and also Pakhavan
Yeah.
के साथ
Could you show
पखावज का
some of them, like कैसे वो बजाते हैं?
जी जी
Could you show some, demonstrate
तो
some? This
दिल्ली का, जैसे कि अभी दिल्ली का जो फेमस कायदा है,
Mm. हाँ.
धाते टे धागे तिन्ना गिना, अभी ये जो कायदा जो है ये सारे लोग बजाते हैं, और इसमें टेटे का जो फिंगर्स का इस्तेमाल हो रहा है ना, तो धाते टे धाग तिन्ना गिना. So now this is basically a very sorry, this is basically a very tabla style of Delhi, which is using the fingers, and tete is a
Okay.
very important way, and this is so the fingers are very prominently used. So the da tete da tete da da tete da ga tin na ge na. So the tete becomes a very important. So that way, that the tite is there, and therefore,
Mm.
but if we were, I mean, but though
Punjab.
the same tite in say for instance in Banaras style, which is
Mm.
more of a Pakhavat style, will be
Okay.
using the finger like. So they would be kind of using the whole hand. kind of, in a way, a Pakhavaj ang adopted in the tabla. So therefore,
Okay.
it's aggressive, it is strong, it has the Pakhavaj influence on it, and the tit is more of using the full hand. Whereas agar
Okay.
so this is a little bit more of a mulayam and a very, very sort of a delicate way of playing. And of they have stuff like that even in Delhi, where you play aggressive stuff and all that stuff that is there. But I'm just trying to say that the finger movement is more prominent in whereas in Banaras it's more of the hand and Punjab. Now we come back to Punjab style. So as I said, Ustads and Pandits went to different parts and then created their own style, and therefore you have the Gharana because their students followed that style and created that. Now, my father came to, so Punjab Gharana had the
Yeah.
Pakhavaj. My father learned how to play Pakhavaj, and so was his guru, Mia Kadir Bakshi, who used to play
Gotcha.
Pakhavaj. He was known as Mia Kadir Baksh Pakhavaji because he used to play the Pakhavaj. And he adopted tabla as part of his playing. And therefore, tabla is more like an adopted thing in this thing in Punjab than actually being there. So Pakhavaj जो वहाँ पे बजती थी उसका influence जो है वो तबले पर आ गया. जैसे मैंने कहा धामा is still there, which is played Pakhavaj style. Now my father learned from there, and then he came to Bombay. Now he came at that time Bombay, now Mumbai. That is now I'm talking about 1938 or something. Now that was before the partition. So he came to Mumbai at that, which he and nobody knew that there was some gharana called Punjab Gharana. You know when they came
Okay.
because the news didn't follow that much and people were traveling not that much. You know, one of the gurus, one of the ustads from Punjab went to Calcutta. Firoz Khan Sahib. He was Firoz
Okay.
Khan. And Ustad Firoz Khan, he went to Calcutta. And from Punjab, my father came to Mumbai. And he settled here. He never went back again because partition happened after whatever years that he lived here, and he kind of started his whatever his career, everything here. He came as a young man and he continued playing. So tabla he adopted, rather he brought in a great what I would call as a combination of तबला तबले का जो style है plus the Pakhavat style, you know. So he
Okay.
made his own he made his own format of tabla playing, and his usually tabla was a little bit more of straightforward playing in those days, you know. सीधा सीधा उसके तबले के वेरिएशन बजते थे और फिर तिहाइयाँ होती थी which were not very complicated, straightforward तिहाइयाँ वगैरह वगैरह it used to be. But my father उनका दिमाग कहीं और तरीके से चलता था. He had some other thought process. So he used to he brought in all these different style, जैसे कि हालांकि कुछ स्टाइल जैसे कहते हैं ना गीत अंग जैसे बोलते हैं, which we call it as the aggressive, that वो जो वो जैसे जैसे वो शिव तांडव जैसे शिव तांडव जैसे तो वो 7 में जा रहा है, which is मिश्र जाति we call it.
जरा दिखाइए वो कैसे वो होता है, जरा उस पे जरा दिखाइए कैसे.
हाँ, so वो बजता है. तो ये this is like this what you call as the शिव तांडव जैसे होता है. जितने भी जो aggressive तो उनका जो जैसे शिव तांडव जो है, it is done in this it's always done in this style what we call as the Mishra Jati, which is a 7, which is it's also Geetang. We call it a Geetang, you know. And then you have all those composition which is played so all these compositions are played. So actually this is a very long composition, but I made it short. You know, फिर वो पूरा इसी में निकल जाएगा मामला. So I made it short, but I example that this is basically an adaptation of Shivji's Tandav style of dance, which is played in this Geetang formation. उसमें श्लोक भी हो जाता है, उसमें ये भी हो जाता है, उसमें वो भी हो जाता है, तो वो सब था. But my father's point of view was a little bit different, and he brought in a very different style of playing tihais and stuff like that, and he adopted the tabla format in the actual tabla style of playing. So जिसमें पेशकार बजता है और कायदे वगैरह, जैसे कि अभी बनारस में उठान बजती है, जैसे कहते हैं कि उठान, जैसे शुरू में तो वो जो 3 लेवल की उठान बोलते हैं.
किस तरह से होती है उठान?
वो जैसे कहते हैं शुरू में, जैसे वो जैसे अभी आपने अभी ये जब, तो अभी उसमें थोड़ा सा So 3 different movement is happening in that. So I mean, you that's usually the case, and this is usually a very long kind of uthan. I'm just sort of making everything short. So this is their way of starting. और हम लोग जब बजाएंगे तो फिर we will go to, अगर वो बजाने के बाद ये 3 ताल का ठेका है. उसके बाद हम पेश कर So we start with the peshkar. This peshkar presentation. So basically पेशकार has a very open, that अलाप जैसे होता है, open है. उसमें आप एक राग करके फिर उसको आप इम्प्रोवाइजेशन करते हैं. उसी तरह से पेशकार यही है कि इसका एक ये जो हमने सेट कर दिया, धा रे धा तिन्ना गे न धा तिन्ना धा रे धा तिन्ना धा, तो ये एक फॉर्मेट हो गया. अब उसके अंदर आप उसको इम्प्रोवाइज कर सकते हैं. अब ये इसमें कोई रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं है कि भाई ये बोल नहीं, वो बोल नहीं, ये नहीं कर सकते, वो नहीं कर सकते, आप उसको फास्ट नहीं बजा सकते. ये सब ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. इट इज जस्ट एन एक्सप्रेशन. इट्स जस्ट लाइक अ प्रेजेंटेशन of how you're going to progress. It actually reflects of the musician's talim rather, and also it reflects the fact how you're going to progress with the whole tabla solo that's going to happen or that's going to take place after this, you know. So उसमें आप थोड़ी सी लयकारी भी कर सकते हैं. उसमें आप whatever it is, you can make it straightforward, you can do लयकारी, तो उससे एक झलक मिल जाती है ऑडियंस को कि this is how the tabla player is going to progress in if you know what is happening. I mean, ये आम लोगों को तो पता नहीं चलता, but those people who know something about it, would give the कि भाई ये इस तरह से चलता है, इस तरह से इसकी आगे इसकी बढ़त होने वाली है. Tabla will, this is how he's going to go forward with the tabla solo and all that stuff. So Peshkar has its own motivation, and if you look deep into it, there's a lot you can do with that. And I use this Peshkar, this kind of what you call the Peshkar, to bring about this combination of Dhama and Tabla, which had the potential to put it together. So, you know, that is how it went about it. So this has a slight differences. हालांकि बोल वही है, धा बज रहा है, मैं बजाऊंगा धा, अभी उधर वहां पर वो बजाएंगे बनारस में, you know, अलग कैसे बजा लेंगे, you know, open जैसे पखावज में बज है ना, और हम बजाएंगे धा, you know, इस तरह से धा बज गई. हम टिट बजाएंगे या दिल्ली में बजाएगा टिट, फिंगर से बज गया, बनारस में और पंजाब में बज गया, थोड़ा इस तरह से। हालांकि बोल वही है, पर उसका निकास जो है ना वो बदल जाता है, बिकॉज ऑफ द इन्फ्लुएंस दैट पीपल had on their this thing. That is what it is.
Okay. One of the compositions that people really look forward to in tabla solos is the Rela.
Is a Rela, yes.
Yeah. So Rela के बारे में कुछ बताइए.
Rela, the word itself is again Persian word which means something moving fast. Rail. People are attributing it to the rail gadi or something like that. You can always do that. But basically, Rela is something that is moving fast. जैसे उर्दू में कहते हैं कि पानी का रेला आया, which means gush of water which is fast, something like that. So something which is fast, something which is sort of imitating something, maybe or maybe not. It all depends on your imagination. So बहुत सारे हैं जैसे ये ज्यादा करके ये उस वहां पे बचा है. So this is the bowl itself is धीरे धीरे जो है वो कहते हैं ना कि it sort of imitates the moving of a train or something.
Okay.
It gives the impression कि train जा रही है.
Yeah.
That is. So this is like so. So now you can say that like all the wagons are moving and the engines are moving, and then you have in the end the tuna kartak sounds like a whistle of a. So the word the bowl it's played in such a way that it sounds like something high pitched is played, which is more like a whistle. So
क्या बात है.
So it gives you the impression that वो भी ट्रेन जा रही है, उसके साथ बोगी भी जा रहा है, उसके साथ सीटी भी बज रही है, ये वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह. So all that thing happens, and there is also something like जैसे कहते हैं कि भाई वो जैसे ये बोल है अपने बजते अपना यहाँ दिल्ली में वगैरह, जैसे लगता है कि जैसे वो कबूतर बोल रहा है, जैसे अगर फास्ट बजाए तो it will be like it's like कबूतर जैसे बोलता है ना, कबूतर की जैसे बोलने का उसका इमिटेशन है इसमें से.
Okay.
So that is another way of looking at it कि भाई ये तो उसकी कबूतर की जैसे आवाज निकल रही है. अभी एक अब्बा जी बजाते हैं जो वेरी फेमस है, एंड में बजाते हैं, which gives you the impression that जैसे घोड़ा दौड़ रहा है. वो उसका जो उसके जो क्या बोलते हैं नाल जैसे बजती है, जैसे नाल जैसे होता है ना, आवाज आ रही है जैसे. So it gives you the impression कि घोड़ा दौड़ रहा है जैसे, it's like a so that's what Rela is all about. It's sometimes depict, sometimes it doesn't depict. It all depends on your imagination and how well it is played and how well it is conveyed.
Okay.
So
wow.
That is what.
ये आपने सारी अब्बा जी से सीखे, और you obviously like you've seen two people in front of you, like Zakir bhai bhi aapse umar mein kafi bade hain. He's about 10-11 years old. So by the time you were in your early teens or something, he was already like traveling around and a well-known name and all that.
Absolutely.
So what was your this thing like? I mean, as somebody who you were influenced by, somebody who inspired you, as well as on a brotherly basis, like what is the relation? What is the and with what all you learned from Abbaji?
See, the thing is, अभी जैसे अब्बा जी के साथ तो relationship मैं कह सकता हूँ कि भाई we came pretty late in the in this world.
Okay.
My eldest sister and me, the age difference is about 15 years actually. जाकिर और मेरे आपने बताया 10-11 साल का फर्क है हमें. तो we came, Tawfiq and I came pretty late, you know. मेरे और Tawfiq के बीच में भी 2 साल का फर्क है, मेरे से छोटा. So what happens is that अब्बा जी के साथ जब मेरा relationship ऐसा है कि my father was high. I would say one thing, that my father had high expectation with Zakir Bhai because he showed the ability. As a child, he was already, you know, playing. I mean, he played his first concert when he was 8 years old, and that too with Ali Akbar Khan Sahab. वो ऐसा हुआ कि
Yeah.
Abba ji, my father was playing with Ali Akbar Khan Sahab on the stage, and during the interval, Zakir Bhai just picked up. He was sitting with my father on the stage. He just picked up the tabla and started playing something. You know, he was just 8, 9 or something like that. Ali Akbar Khan Sahab was very intrigued by this. He said, "अरे, लड़का बजा रहा है, चलो थोड़ा इसके साथ भी बजा लेते हैं." You know, that kind of. So Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, you know, said, "ठीक है." So then Zakir Bhai played 15-20 minutes with Ali Akbar Khan Sahab at that age on the stage, for that matter. You know, actually it was Abbaji's concert. So Zakir Bhai stole the, as they say, he stole the thunder from my father, because as a young child, अरे भाई लड़का बजा रहा है Ali Akbar Khan Sahab के साथ ताली, you know. But he showed a lot of promise from the very early age, and therefore my father was a little more, and my father was on the younger side at that time, and he was, you know, having uh, made a name for himself at that time, and he used to take Zakir Bhai around everywhere for his shows and for his music recordings, you know, and his everything, whatever that he was doing, that Zakir Bhai was always there with him. And by the time we came, by the time we were sort of grown up, my father was in his, you know, sort of kind of reaching the 50s and the 60s or something like that. And he was a little bit more open-minded. And he never said, "Ki bhai tumko tabla bajana hai, you must practice." No, nothing of that sort. He left us to do whatever. And I was into studies, and I was into sports. You know, if I tell myself that if I had not taken up tabla, I would have become a sportsman, because I was so much into it. You know, I was the fastest runner in the class. I used to be the captain of the cricket team, and I was used to play football. In fact, I must tell you one thing. The first time my name came in the papers in Times of India, I still remember that. You know, it was like 75 or 70 something. My name came in the papers because I scored a goal for my school
Oh
in
wow.
a in the in the inter-school competition, you know.
Okay.
That game, Qureshi scored a goal, you know. So that was my first, you know, encounter with seeing my name in the papers. That was because I was
Okay.
scored a goal for my school. So that was that I would have become, you know. But then I guess it's just it's a very fascinating story. If you want to hear it? Is that we used to have students coming from abroad and staying with us in our house, you know, in Bombay, and they used to
You were in
really
Mahim or Simla House
no,
then?
no, in Nepean Road actually. This was in the
Nepal,
70s.
Simla House. Yes, sir.
73, 74 की बात है. And and there was a young fellow who came, actually, a young boy who was just 16 years old. He came all the way from America, and he was so good with tabla, and he was so good in recitation. Now, being an American boy, imagine the recitation that he had. He had such a great recitation, is that Zakir Bhai used to take him everywhere in for the concerts, and he used to tell him, his name was Peter. I said, "Come on, Peter, recite." So he used to recite as if आपको ऐसा लगेगा कि भाई अब्बा जी बोल रहे हैं, इतना अच्छा था उसका रेसिटेशन. You know, his recitation was so good. So I he used to sit and practice the whole day in the house, and I used to go to school, come back and watch him practice, and I said, "Wow." And he kind of and what I used to do is that I had not learned anything, and I was not sure what I was going to. I just picked up the tabla while he was playing, and whatever he was playing, I used to play faster than him. Just play
Okay.
something, whatever he was playing. So he used to get a little bit annoyed also sometimes. "Arey, ye kya hai? He just come back from school and he picked up the tabla, he's playing." So anyway, I used to watch him, and then I used to sit and practice with him. I used to start, and my father walking around, and he said, "Arey, इसको शौक है, he's interested and he's playing." So then he
What about
started.
there's a question here whether the sisters were also into music, whether they were playing tabla or
Well,
something.
the sisters were not into music, but my they were of course appreciating music, and they were more. My elder sister was very much interested into writing poetry and all that stuff. You know,
Okay.
my elder sister was living in London now,
Right.
and but they were not into
Kushi.
music.
Yeah.
So there was a little taboo in those days,
Yeah.
about women doing this. But my mother, I must tell you one thing: the way I'm speaking right now, the way I'm talking, the way I'm expressing myself is, I tell you one thing, it's all thanks to my mother, because she made
Okay.
sure that we all went to the best schools that were
Hmm.
available. And because my father was busy traveling, so of course my father's name was involved in that. And said, "Hey, भैया इनके लड़के हैं, उस्ताद अल्लाह रखा के लड़के हैं इनको." So St. Michael's School, which was
Yeah. Mahim.
that's
Mahim.
where I studied with my younger brother. Tawfiq was there.
Yeah.
I I studied in a school which was behind the St. Michael's School called the KG Khilani School. And
Okay.
then I went to another school when we shifted to Nepal. That was when we were in Mahi. And then
Okay.
when we went to what you call Nepensi Road, we
Hmm.
went to Hillgrange High School, which was at near Jaslok Hospital.
Okay.
And then we went to Xavier's College after that. So all thanks to my mother, basically, she made sure that we had all that. And my brother Zakir भाई का क्या था कि वो थोड़े से मैं क्या बोलूँ, he was more interested in the music thing than he was in the studies. So my mother used to drop him, and then he used to go and inquire to the father at St. Michael's and ask him whether मेरा लड़का है अभी मैं छोड़ के गई थी. And the father principal used to say, सवेरे देखा था उसको, but right now I'm not seeing him. So she made sure that Zakir Bhai also. So Zakir Bhai used to go and practice and all that, but she made sure that everything was as per the learning, as all that stuff. So education was very
Hmm.
important. She made sure that we had it. So
Wow.
my mother's main role
Yeah.
was that, sure that we studied and everything, and my father's main role was, go out and perform and get the money and all that stuff.
Okay, that brings us to another thing. Like, of course, we talked about his going abroad and playing with Raviji and all that, but he also did some things which continued with both Zakir Bhai and you. Like, one was he played with Buddy Rich, the jazz musician, Rich Alaraka. That was the album. And then Zakir Bhai, of course, with Shakti and all. And you also had this group, Minta, Surya. And
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
yeah, so
No,
tabla in versus jazz and any other collaborations that have been very close to you and what you.
correct. You see, the thing is, lot of people say कि भाई आप fusion कर रहे हैं, ऐसे कैसे, मतलब classical musician है. तो मैं कहता हूँ कि भाई fusion is also part of my घराना because my father was the first person to play with a drummer in the 60s. Buddy Rich, a
Hmm.
big, huge guy, and also collaborate with South Indian musicians in those
Yeah.
times. And being a classical musician, he was not very sort of confined to that. He expanded his horizon a bit, a lot, and
Hmm.
playing with all jazz musicians. So they also, you heard about, I mean, about the famous trio that happened with
Hmm.
Yehudi Manu, Ravi Ji,
Yeah,
and my
yeah,
father
yeah, yeah,
together. And
yeah.
so all these collaboration work uh, also made my father famous, of course, in the Western world, also, and also expanded his thinking also. कि भाई ये, there's something else also beyond classical music, and we need to sort of understand what is happening, and that rubbed off on all of us, as well as Zakir Bhai, who kind of went to America in 1969. He wanted to explore, he wanted to live a different life and see what is happening around, and he collaborated with John McLaughlin and with other jazz musicians, and
Hmm.
this and I remember, we were driving from New Jersey into New York, and he was driving, and I was sitting next to him, and there were other musicians were behind, and we crossed over the George Washington Bridge and went into the island of Manhattan, and then we were driving, and then he looked up and he said, "Arey, I was staying here in this. There was the building. He said, there's a flat here. I used to stay there.
Hmm.
And John and I and Shankar, we used to 1 year we stayed here and practiced. You
Hmm.
know, for for 1 year. I mean, imagine that.
Hmm.
How much dedication they had. That they were they wanted to create something which would be lasting, and that would mean that you need to understand what is happening in the opposite side. If I want to perform with a jazz musician, I want to know what is happening with him, what is happening with his music, and
Hmm.
he to know what is happening with mine. And John McLaughlin obviously learned Veena. himself.
Yeah,
He actually
he
was
was
a
inspired by Balachandar, I think. That was
correct. So he
hero.
was so he knew about the Indian music, and therefore it was very imperative that Zakir Bhai also knows a little bit about the jazz format and what is happening. And L. Shankar also knew about it, and Bikuji joined them, and therefore there was such a great gel between. For me, Shakti is the best example of fusion music ever, and
Yeah,
we still remember
absolutely.
they played, and the way there's one piece in which it's actually in Sidhu Bhairavi, which is composed by both Shankar and Shankar and John McLaughlin, and it is part of the third album. You must, if you get a chance, please listen to it. It's in Sindhu Bhairavi. It's in the beat called 13 and a half beat.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
it's in, they couldn't find any other rhythm cycle. So where was
30
the
and a
half beat? Why not just 13?
half.
What is that half beat? So 13 and a half beat, and in the beginning of it, uh, John McLaughlin did an alap. You won't believe that it's a guitar playing. It's an alap played in guitar. He's following the notes like as if he knew the rag so well, and he was using. So what happens is that with the guitar, you can't do the mean is not happening. So what he used to do is that, where a tuning thing is there. So he used to lower the note like this and then make it tight, like that. So get the mean on the guitar, which is
Yeah.
very innovative. So, I mean, it is
No, I
amazing.
remember he and Shivji also did Kirwani at in Mumbai, no, the piece
Correct.
Shingar. Yeah,
No, no,
which was impromptu again. Like it was
correct.
just yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and there were
So,
no rehearsals. You just go on and yeah.
absolutely, and this is the great thing about music. Our music is such, and especially our Indian music. 95% of our music is improvised. So everything is
Yeah.
happening on the spot, and everything is going on the spot. So this is basically what it is. If you want to do any music, this is like a learning thing for all of us, for all our musicians and all the young ones who are going to do fusion music. Basically understand what fusion music is all about.
Yeah.
Please be able to know what the other person's music is all about before you collaborate. And even if you collaborate, learn, I mean, what the pieces is. Like, for instance, when I was playing with Minta, we used to have pieces which is inspired by African music, inspired by Chinese music, inspired by Swedish folk music. Now I'm playing tabla. Now there's no tabla being played in Swedish folk music. There's no tabla playing in African style of music. But there is a groove which is there, which
So
is
could you
which is
just show that what kind of groove that you played?
see. So what is happening is that there is a 1 2 3 1 2 3 groove is happening, which is now this is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Yeah.
Now I could play many things in that, but
Mm.
I had to play such that you feel as if there is a djembe playing or something like that. So it is be so it gives you the impression that there is sort of a movement, and then it changes into a different point of view altogether. But you see, the thing is, this is, I mean, अभी अब हमारे लिए तो ये एक ताला हुआ या कैरवा या दादरा हुआ वगैरह. But I had to make a groove. So basically what is happening is that I understand the groove of the song, and then I played the groove according to the groove of the song. So you have it. So this is all happening in 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. But it is just gives you the impression that it is kind of not basically Indian style, but it
Okay.
is connected to the African sort of a point of view and all that. Like, for instance, in the Swedish folk there is a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. So the three is a more important. It's called Polska. It's called the
Okay.
Polska.
Yeah, Polska.
So 1 2. So that you give an emphasis on the three rather than the one. So it is like that, but they don't have. See, when they have the folk music there, they have a guitar or something, or they have a sort of a traditional instrument playing, but there is no percussion instrument playing as such. So it was very interesting to play this Polska, which is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So that three
Okay.
was more important than the one. So I was emphasizing on that three, which went very well with the
Mm.
Polska that was being played. So not the one. The one is
Okay.
not important, one is not important. So it was
Okay.
something different for me also to think in terms of, अरे यार, some kidhar hai? But some is not really there. The three is. So you're emphasizing on the three. So so different point of view. You understand,
Okay.
you play accordingly, and you blend in. You become
Mm.
part of it. And therefore you don't really stand out. You be part of it. You're
Part of
getting
that's
into
it.
it. That is very important
Okay.
for being in music.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of things today. It was a wonderful conversation. We There is a little more left, which I'll tell you.
Sure.
But yeah, I hope it was fantastic. We just, I mean, improvised as and when. And आपका मैंने वो लहरा संगत ठीक दे दिया ना थोड़ा.
आपने क्या क्या लहरा दिया है कि मैं और इंस्पायर हो गया कि मैं इतना बोल
अच्छा,
रहा हूँ,
okay.
बंद ही नहीं हो रहा हूँ. Nani, Nani would be very upset कि मैंने कुछ बजाया नहीं ज्यादा, but I'm just talking so much.
नहीं नहीं नहीं, that's no, but it
But I,
was there were a lot of different insights that we heard both about the tabla and your own learning and family and all that, which was really really interesting. So before we leave, कुछ एक piece बजा दीजिए, anything of your choice. And
yeah, what I would like to do is, as I said, that there is tabla. But when we say that we play stuff which is same as what it is in tabla in fusion music. So give you, I'm going to play something which will give you an impression that this is being tabla syllables, but which used for fusion music. How I would play if I want to play a solo in a jazz concert or in a fusion concert. I'm not going to play. मतलब मैं ये सब नहीं बजाऊँ कायदा या पेशकार वगैरह नहीं. But I can play something which you will give the impression that this is what it is. So एक 2-3 मिनट का मैं बजा करके खत्म
sure,
करता हूँ.
sure, that will be wonderful. Wow,
Thank you. Thank you very Thank you, Narendra ji,
fantastic,
for the conversation. Thank you very
fantastic.
much.
This was just too amazing. Just so amazing. I really have no words. Seriously, um,
कुछ हमारी तारीफ कर लीजिए, बस थोड़ी सी तारीफ कर लीजिए.
अभी इतनी तारीफ हुई है आपकी, मैं अगर पढ़ना शुरू कर दूं तो आप मेरे से फिश भी नहीं करेंगे. Seriously, अभी I mean, I just definitely want to read out some of the comments. इतने आए हैं. This is from Atul saying this was lovely, way too short. Need a follow up with Fazal. Then Gia, who's gotten up early morning in the US to watch this, just too amazing, and what a humble personality too. एक question और आया है from our very dear friend Parag. He's saying, is there any international musician that Fazal ji wants to collaborate with in the future? And if so, why? Sorry, अब मैं conversation में take over कर रही हूँ.
नहीं, कोई बात नहीं. I mean, for me, if I want to collaborate, I would like to work with the great John McLaughlin, because I never got a chance to play with him, but I have been listening to him. My whole winter band were inspired by him. The guitar player who used to play who plays with us in Minta, completely sort of flowed by him, and I feel that this guy is the one who has such a great knowledge of our music as well as the jazz. Of course, he's a great name in the jazz.
True.
It's lovely to play with him and lovely to collaborate with him and to know, I mean, what you can do with him. अब जाकिर भाई वो तो उनका तो है ही है, but I would also love to collaborate with him. I would one day hopefully get a chance to play with him.
Well, hopefully so. And then we are looking forward to that chance because we want to be the audience for sure in that chance. Because, I mean, knowing you and where you can take the tabla, I mean, I only witnessed very closely at the Kasoli Rhythm and Blues Festival and the magic you created on stage. I
I mean,
still get goosebumps when I think about it.
I tell you, Kasoli was, for me, it's an experience. I have witnessed festivals like this abroad in England. I've gone to all these festivals in Scotland, in Wales. I've been in Denmark, in Sweden. I've seen all these rock festivals and all these people going crazy. And this is the first time I've seen something in India where it was such an inspiring audience who were like who understood the music that we were doing, who were enjoying everything, and I felt that I was in one of these countries where I played with my group Minta, and I felt that this should this is and the concert became well because of the inspiration we got from the audience. I tell you.
Not at all. I was only the one to make sure that you all came there. After that, everything was your work, yours, even Ravi Ayers and Pandit Ravichari. I thought, I mean, you all did a brilliant job. And in fact, just sharing with everybody that I had to fight with my team to get their set into the festival, first of all. And I was terrified when the first piece finished. If you remember, you said कि उसको बुलाइए सामने बैठेगी तो मैं बजाऊंगा, and I just quietly sat. And Naren, the camera guy played the audience on the LED at the back when the first piece finished. I was terrified. I did not want to look up. I said, सब लोग चले गए होंगे. मुझे बहुत डांट पड़ेगी कि you brought classical music into a rock music festival, and what is wrong with you? People want to hear Bollywood covers, and the ground was full, and Fazal Bhai got a standing ovation for that piece.
And
So
it was
I
such a
can never
beautiful
forget
day.
that.
I tell you, I saw the sun setting down. It was outside, and then the Kasoli Mountains, and then you had the sun setting down, and then we started playing. It was a beautiful atmosphere. Amazing, amazing. I tell you, thank you very much for getting us there. I mean, it was
No,
just
you all
amazing.
did a great job. So that's
Very
that's
inspiring.
one very very memorable moments. So today I'd even put up a poll on our conversation with the audience to ask that do we want him to stop the reservoir of knowledge, and everybody has said no, we want some more, we want some more. So of course, greedy as I always am with all the artists, all our guest artists. So I'm going to request you to play one very small piece, and let's get the audience to clap along. Of course, you will not be able to hear them. None of us will be able to hear them. But maybe sitting in their homes on their chairs, they can sit and clap along and be a part of this last little rhythm that you're going to play and going to get them involved. And then with that,
Well,
we will come to the end of this episode.
I will play something which is called the 4/4 जैसे कहरवा जैसे होता है उसको बजा करके थोड़ा सा मैं अपना करके खत्म करता हूँ. So it will be.
This was beautiful. This was really nice, and I'm sure, absolutely sure that in the audience, everybody must have been clapping in their homes, in their seats, and this was just brilliant. This was just brilliant. There is one very nice comment from Usha ji. Usha ji has been with us actually since I think Dhanashri ji's show, and she's been with us on all our shows. So I enjoyed your program with Roni Majumdar ji and the saxophone player, which was impromptu, and you were so gracious. So there are loads of like really, really nice complimenting comments that have come. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take snapshots and I'm going to share them with you separately. But thank you everybody for being here with us and watching the show.
But Nani ji, we must not forget that the questions that Narendra ji asked, that prompted me, and that accompaniment that he keeps talking about, the way he did the lehra इन्होंने जो किया था, और उससे मुझे जो inspiration मिला है, and I went talking about it, and I think the questions were just about right. Such questions are never asked for me to talk like this, So I mean, I thank Narendra ji for his fantastic. I mean, he's a genius. I mean, he knows his stuff. He knows the music field. He knows.
He is.
And so, you've got the right person to host the shows.
So why don't we both give him? Why don't we both clap for him? I'm sure the audience is doing it too. But really.
Thank you, Narendra ji, for the.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No, he's
I mean,
fantastic.
it's been. I first met Fazal by almost 1992, 93, but I interviewed him in 1996. That was the first time. And तब से मतलब दो चार बार किया है. And we've obviously seen each other in concerts and met each other and all that. Both we go back quite a long way.
So there's an audience vote also. There's an audience vote also for Naren. See, our dear friend Atul is also saying that. So, and that Sangeeta had said right in the beginning, and Shohini had also mentioned in between, and Sunita, of course, has been saying that, and everybody. In fact, Naren, because you host it so beautifully that you allow the artist to speak and the artist to actually give out so much knowledge, which is so important, so important.
Thank
and
you.
I have to say today, one thing one learned is that tabla is not just a simple instrument of two instruments sitting over there. बजा दिया तो हो गया और एक जो rhythms है चलिए एक percussion accompaniment. It's not just an accompaniment. There's just so much more to the tabla, and I think it's just beautiful. It's just so beautiful. Thank you so much. There's been a lot of learning today. So thank you everybody, old friends and some new people joined in today and some old ones continued with us. Next Sunday is Diwali, so we will not be doing, Saturday is Diwali, so we are giving a break for next Sunday. We will not be doing an episode, but thereafter, again the following Sunday onwards, again we'll be back. So we will keep you posted, you follow us. On the Wednesday of that Sunday, we will be informing you about the upcoming artists. The lineup is already ready. Naren, I'm going to share that with you because your homework has to start now. And thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Fazal, once again.
You so much,
thank you, Narendra ji. Thank you, the audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sending such great comments. Thank you very much. Hope to see you guys again. Take care.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you to the Showcase events team. They've all vanished as always, but they've all gone to do their own areas. So there's Rajshri, there's Naina, there's Noor, there's Shohini. So every single person who's like, they work back end. All the promotions of the event happen through them. So thank you each and every person for doing so much to put this whole thing together. I only come and show my face. Really, I do nothing else to this. But thank you so much once again, and thank you. And I hope you all enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you. Thank you and good night.
Thank you and good night. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.